Welcome to the Calexico City Council, Calexico Redevelopment Successor Agency, Calexico Financing Authority. Regular meeting agenda, Wednesday, April 19th, 2017 at 5:40 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Real,
Here?
Councilmember Pacheco,
Here.
Councilmember Hodge,
Here.
Councilmember Escobar. Here. Councilmember Hurtado is absent. We have
Thank
quorum,
you.
sir.
Closed session agenda. Public comments not to exceed 3 minutes. This is the time for the public to address the city council on closed session items only. The mayor will recognize you, and when you come to the microphone, please state your name and place of residence for the record. While members of the public are encouraged to participate, it is unlawful to disturb or delay the council meeting with personal or slanderous remarks. The city council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not included or printed on the agenda. Please direct your questions and comments to the city council. Do we have questions and comments from the public? No, we do not. We will adjourn to closed session.
We're going to the.
Hello and welcome to the Calexico City Council, Calexico Redevelopment Successor Agency, Calexico Financing Authority regular session meeting. We will commence at 6:38 p.m. Call to order.
Mayor
Roll.
Real,
Roll call. Here.
Mayor Protem Hurtado is absent. Councilmember Pacheco,
Here.
Councilmember Escobar,
Here.
Councilmember Hodge.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you. We will now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Chief Gomez, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? We have an invocation by Pastor Dennis Freeman from Christ Community Church. Is he available? Thank you, sir.
My name is Dennis Freeman. I'm a pastor at Christ Community Church, and I just want to say thank you. It's a privilege and an honor. As I pray, would you please all bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you, Lord God, for who you are, for what you've done, all that you provide for us, Lord God. I want to thank you on behalf of all who have gathered here tonight. Lord God, you give us life itself, Lord God. And you give us the measure of health that is needed for each of us to fulfill the calling that you have on our life. I want to thank you, Lord God, for all that you provide for us. Thank you, Lord God, for the friendships and the acquaintances. Thank you for the ability, Lord God, to be useful and involved in work and the honor that it takes bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thank you, well, Lord God, for the freedom that you give us to embrace you or to reject you, and you still love us. In the scriptures, you teach us, Lord God, that as citizens, we ought to obey the governing authority that you have established before us and over us. And we thank you for this council and for the authority that you have given them. I pray for the mayor, Lord God, each council member, and for the various levels of city officials that are assembled here tonight, Lord God. Please, Lord God, give each of them wisdom dealing with the business that comes before them. Please bless the mayor, all the council members, Lord God. Bless the city of Calexico, its citizens, and all of its visitors. And it's in your name, Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Freeman. Really appreciate it. Closed session announcements.
Thank you, Mayor. City Council met in closed session on item 1 on this evening's agenda. We received direction, but no reportable actions were taken. Thank you.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda. I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Presentations. Proclamation honoring Autism Awareness Month, April 2017, and World Autism Awareness Day, April 2nd, 2017. Whereas autism is a permanent neurological disorder that becomes visible in the early stages of infancy. It is a disorder that does not discriminate against gender, race, or social status. Autism is a disorder characterized by the way it affects social behavior and communicative abilities in children and people affected since birth. People with autism display certain behaviors, such as inability to have normal social interactions, atypical learning abilities, and special interest on certain topics. Having routine activities or schedules and the difficulty to process sensory information are also predominant symptoms. And
I'll do the next one. At the rate that more professionals are becoming experts in diagnosing autism, more children are being diagnosed on the spectrum. This results in 1 in 66 children at a national level being on the spectrum, and figures show that in the United States, there are 1.5 million people affected by this disorder. In the Imperial Valley alone, there are 1,500 families who are affected by autism spectrum disorder. And, whatever.
I'll read hers as well. Whereas the rate of autism is high in all regions of the world, and the lack of comprehension produces strong repercussions against children, their families, and their communities. Stigmatization and discrimination associated in the diversity within the neurological scope continues to be the main obstacle and challenges that people with autism face. And
Whereas there is no cure for autism, it is documented that if people with autism receive the proper treatment at an early age and continually throughout their life, they will live lives that will allow them to integrate socially and eventually branch into the workforce. Helping control their symptoms and stopping their disability from progressing can help people with autism cope with daily activities that are often impossible for them to do. And
Whereas people with autism require special services and community support to ensure that their health and security is taken care of, families also require support because of the psychological and financial strain that comes with having a child with autism. And
whereas the United Nations General Assembly declared in unanimity April 2nd as World Autism Awareness Day in Article ARES 62-139 in order to highlight the need for contribution to the betterment of quality of life for people with autism so that they can live fulfilling lives as members of society. And
now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Armando G. Real, Mayor of the City of Calexico, hereby proclaim April 2017 as Autism Awareness Month and April 2nd, 2017 as World Autism Awareness Day in the City of Calexico to raise public awareness and acceptance of autism and the myriad of issues surrounding the disorder, and well as to increase knowledge of the programs that have been and are being developed to support individuals with autism in their and their families. In witness whereof, I hereunto affix my signature and official seal of the City of Calexico on this 19th day of April of 2017. We have here a proclamation plaque. Who wants to receive it?
Now to trees.
Moving on to item 3, proclamation of Arbor Day celebration, April 28, 2018, 2017, I'm sorry. Is there anybody here to accept this proclamation for Arbor Day? I believe Javier Gonzalez was going to be here for that. Do you want to maybe continue it? Should we continue it? Okay, we will continue this to the next meeting. Do I have a, is that okay? Sure. For the celebration? There's nobody here to accept it. Would you want to accept it in place of Javier Gonzalez? No? Should do the proclamation anyways? All right. Okay. Let's continue. Arbor Day celebration for May 2nd, 2017. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And
Whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperatures, clean the air, produce life, giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, give us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And
Whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal.
Whereas San Diego State University Imperial Valley Campus is commended for their efforts to celebrate Arbor Day 2017.
now therefore, I, Armando G. Real, Mayor of the City of Calexico, on behalf of the Calexico City Council, do hereby proclaim April 28, 2017 as Arbor Day in the City of Calexico, and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day, support the efforts to protect our trees and city woodlands, and to plant trees to gladden the hearts and promote the well-being of of the future generations. In witness whereof, I hereunto affix my signature and the official seal of the City of Calexico on this 19th day of April 2017. Okay, moving on. Public comments and public appearances. Note, not to exceed 3 minutes. This is the time for the public to address the City Council on any item not appearing on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. The mayor will recognize you, and when you come to the microphone, please state your name and place of residence for the record. While members of the public are encouraged to participate, it is unlawful to disturb or delay the City Council meeting with personal or slanderous remarks. If the item you wish to comment on is on consent item, please comment now. The Calexico City Council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not included on the printed agenda. If the item you wish to comment on is on the public portion of the agenda, we will take your comments when we get to that item on the agenda. Please direct your questions and comments to the City Council. Do we have public comments? No, sir. These aren't here? No. Okay. No public comment. Okay.
That's a first. Let's move on.
Yeah. Where's Ben Horton? Ben is not here.
Don't.
Maybe we should wait for him. Just Mr. Kim.
Going once, going twice.
The one's going twice.
Let's go.
Sold. All right. City council comments and reports of meetings attended. I'll start to my right here, Mr. Pacheco.
I have nothing to report, thank you.
Nothing to report. Mr. Hodge.
Yes, couple of nice meetings. I am on SCAG, and I'm on the committee called the Community Economic Human Development Committee. And Governor Brown has recognized this need at the statewide level and has proposed a $25 million in FY 17-18 budget released in January 10th, 2017 for competitive planning grants to assist regions and local governments in achieving sustainable transportation requirements per SB 375 and other state objectives. So we have a shot at that, but they wrote in here some of the areas that a lot of cities are negligent in, and we need to be aware of them. I can provide copies for you. When SCAG prepared the most recent call for projects, the following statistics were telling regarding the region's need for additional planning resources. 40% of SCAG cities, counties have general plans that are more than 10 years old. Only about 25% of SCAG cities have completed greenhouse gas inventories for climate action plans. More than 40% of SCAG cities or counties lack comprehensive active transportation plans. Less than 5% of SCAG's cities have started thinking about ways in which technology and transportation network services will change mobility. And only 20% of transit priority areas are fully covered by a specific plan. Of those, more than 60% are over 60 years old. So if these areas seem like we need to work on them, I've got a copy of that. The other because of Councilman and ICTC, I attended the town hall meeting with Mr. City Manager Villa, and then I went on the tour. The town hall meeting was very interesting, very formative. One thing that struck me was El Centro is really taking a lead in the role in active transportation. They have a pretty good plan. That's something that I would like to see down the road that we do, that we take seriously. Active transportation, bicycling, walking, bike lanes. Caltrans indicated it has 102 projects. 32 are in the Imperial Valley. They have already started on 98, and the director said, sorry for the next 4 years of inconvenience. Then on the tour, we first visited the Eastport, and the officers there too were very concerned about the people that have to walk those 2 miles in the dirt and in the sand. So that's an area that we need to work on. One of the officers said that they are expanding also north and southbound lanes. For the west, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you actually told me this, and it was Mr. City Manager, where the pedestrians walk across the building where the fountain is and everything, they're going to build a larger building there. Is that correct? And people will be able to, and it's going to be large, and it's going to be glass, and it should be, I've seen a rendering, it should be extremely attractive, and people will be able to wait inside that building. That's how big it will be, so that they won't be in the heat. And the full glass building will be a very attractive amenity that will bring different clientele, I believe, to shop in Calexico. So this should have a positive impact, slowly changing downtown to a new shopping experience. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Mr. Escobar?
Thank you, Mayor. A couple quick comments. I went on a trade mission to Fuzhou, China last week, It was to promote the foreign trade zone here in the Imperial Valley, and specifically Calexico. I was invited by Imperial Regional Alliance through IVADC, so it didn't cost the city anything. And it was headed up by, the delegation was headed up by Travis Allen, who is our vice chair for, and I got to read this, vice chair for the Committee on Jobs, Economic Development, and the Economy for the state of California. He's an actual assembly member representing the, he's from Huntington Beach, and I apologize, I forgot the number of the actual district. So it was a really good trip. Hopefully it will bring economic development and projects to the Imperial Valley, specifically to Calexico. I'm also on the interview board for the SBDC director position tomorrow, so hopefully we'll be able to get an executive director very soon on that. The position of executive director is obviously to promote businesses to come to the Imperial Valley and to develop in the Imperial Valley, helping them out with business plans and general business consulting. So that's definitely something that we desperately need in the Imperial Valley, and specifically Calexico. Last but not least, I'm looking forward to solidifying a date for our offsite strategic planning session. I'm sure you're going to have some comments on that, and I know we're kind of centered around May or June to get that going. So I'm really excited about that, and hopefully we'll be able to come to a consensus as a city council with the city manager and city staff and the community as a whole. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I actually do have a lot to say, but I think I'm going to have an opportunity to do that tomorrow. I want to invite everybody to our State of the City address, and so I'll say my 10-minute speech there. But I do want to offer my condolences to the passing of Luis Castro Sr., who passed, I believe, yesterday. Mr. Castro was a council member here for, I believe, 8 years, serving our city, and his father passed away, so I would like to offer my condolences to his family.
All of us.
And that's it. Let's move on to consent agenda. All matters listed under consent agenda are to be considered routine by
Mr.
the
Mayor?
city.
Oh, our manager, our city
I'm sorry.
manager.
Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I got a couple of
Okay.
things to share with you and the community.
Go ahead.
Don't leave him out.
All right, so want to take an opportunity to introduce to you our new interim fire chief, Diego Favila. As you may know, our you want to say a couple of words? Here.
You got 3 minutes.
All right, yeah, 3 minutes.
I was there.
So
Go
thank
easy,
you for the
Mayor.
introduction, Honorable City Council. I just want to say into the public, thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to represent our city and to lead the direction of our fire department, and I'm here to serve and make things good and keep it going as we are. So just thank you for that.
We're glad to have you.
Felicidades.
Good luck.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And just want to remind everyone, as you said, Mr. Mayor, tomorrow is State of the City address at 6 p.m. At the Carmen Durazo Cultural Arts Center. So we expect everybody to be there. We have some really, really exciting news to share with you in the community. I also want to remind the council, there's a SCAG Annual General Assembly meeting on May 4th. If you're interested in attending, let me know as soon as possible. We do have an opportunity to get some free SCAG sponsored tickets for that. It's a very good opportunity to know what the region is doing. As you know, SCAG is the Southern California Association of Governments. We are one of 7, I believe, 7 counties: Ventura County, LA County, Riverside County. Am I missing some? Imperial County, San Diego is different. So we are part of that regional agency that deals with planning and growth issues. So let me know if you're interested in attending that meeting. And also,
Is it near any beaches?
it's actually near a desert, Palm Desert.
Oh, Palm. Will there be a pool?
You get sand, you won't get water. Yeah. And also, we are trying to get a consensus on the goal setting, strategic plan / strategic plan process that we'd like to have with the council. So far, we have May 10th or May 17th for you. So let me know what days are good for you. We're trying to keep those 2 dates light. May 10th is a special meeting that we're going to be presenting some budget items for you, which are very much in line with goal setting. So let us know.
May
We
10th
are-
is Mother's Day, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
My mom won't like that.
Bring your mom. One of the things about the strategic plan is that, as you know, we've actually started the strategic plan process last year. A lot of the goal setting, a lot of the issues that we need to address are still pretty much the same. We want you to take a look at that document. I'll send it out to see if you're interested in revising that document to include, your stamp on it or new issues. A lot of it has to deal with economic development and downtown. So let us know if you want to, after I send it to you, if you want to continue to on that plan or create a new one. And then along those lines too is that we're working very hard. Our finance department is working really hard to get the 2016 audit done, and we are anticipating that we might be able to bring that to you May 10th.
May 10th.
Yeah. And
Is that the infamous CAFR?
the CAFR.
That's the
Yeah,
infamous
2016.
CAFR. Thank you.
CAFR, yeah. And as Mr. Hodge mentioned, we did have the California Transportation Commission in Calexico. I thought that was pretty big. This is the State of California Transportation Commission, and they had a workshop in Calexico, and they were wanting to know about the community, what the community needs. We did have an opportunity to have not just the Transportation Commission, but also Imperial County Transportation Commission, Caltrans, and other agencies, so they can do an assessment of what our county needs. And one of the biggest takeaways from that is that the whole region, there's an influx, there's an injection of about $500 million worth of construction, transportation-related construction in the Imperial County throughout the region. So that's a plus. I don't think I've ever seen that.
$500 million, right, with a B.
$500 million worth of construction, most particularly along Highway 98, 111, Highway 10, and in the whole region, meaning that we're improving our network, transportation network. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
You went past your 3 minutes. All right, consent agenda. All matters listed under consent agenda are to be considered routine by the City Council, Calexico Redevelopment Successor Agency, Calexico Financing Authority, and will be enacted in one motion in the form listed. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately by the council. I make a motion to.
Mayor.
Want to speak? Okay.
Ismael Lopez?
Oh, boy.
Good evening, Councilman, Mr. Mayor, fellow citizens of the City of Calexico. Ismael Lopez, 1094 Holdridge, City of Calexico. Just a quick note and a request. On the warrants, we have the report, which is published, very good. Secondly is, I'd noticed that we have fuel for resale in the airport. I am assuming it's the airport because it's AV Fuel Corporation. The request is, can we publish as well what monies we receive or what revenue came in, not just what's going out? On the other side is what came in. So we will know where we at with a little note on the side by the city manager or the director of finance to say we are on target with what we plan, or we are behind so far on the month to date, year to date basis. So we know where we're going. That's my request. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that was
Um,
Mr. Lopez?
Fuel cost.
Mayor? We're going to have a presentation on our city finances for the 9-month ended fiscal year in a couple seconds. So that'll answer a lot of our questions, including ours. But if I may, you did have our first economic development meeting.
Yes.
Finance,
Yes, we
I
did.
mean, it's a long title. Could you give us a very, very brief
It's
summary?
Very, very, very brief is, we agree that we're going to review the bylaws of the commission because several of us, we were not in agreement on how it was stated. Also, we comment with no agreement on developed a scope of work with a so-called business plan. We haven't met again or meet again to go over those two issues. No set date has been programmed to discuss them. We are already communicating among each other on our findings, and we will continue doing so. So our next meeting, we will have a more active.
When is it, the next meeting, please? Oh, it's not?
It's not been set up. The understanding that we had is we will have it on a Tuesday, a week prior to council meeting on Tuesdays at 5:30 or 6. It's one
I
of
believe it
those.
was 5:30.
5:30?
I attended,
you
I
were here.
attended the meeting, and I think it was more of just reorganization of the chairs and the bylaws, but I'm eager, as well as I know you guys are, to start helping us with the city finances. As for the question, I believe that's something that the finance director can probably bring to the finance commission meeting, so you guys can dissect, which is your job, to be able to do that. So that's a good idea. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
I make a motion to approve 4, 5, and 6.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion on potential action items. Item 7, 2016-17 mid-year budget report for March 31st, 2017.
And it's too late for number 7? You wait?
No, well, let's take it now. Before, let's do it before the presentation, please. You want the presentation first? To question who exactly? Are we allowed to question the presentation?
It's city council's discretion. They have an
But
opportunity to comment on the
the
item.
comments are before the presentation.
It's how discretion. People have the ability to comment on every item when,
Should we do it before or after, in your
which has
opinion?
been the practice here, over the practice here.
I think usually we do it before, but before the presentation.
If it's been the practice, then I would recommend the practice.
Can you do it now? Okay, we're allowing you to ask now the questions, and that way maybe she can address them. Can you please comment now? We're allowing you to do it now. After, we're not going to take questions. Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, we're allowing you, sir, we're allowing you, just like every other person, to go ahead and ask your questions prior to the presentation. That's the way we always do it. Do you want to do it now? Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the presentation.
Mayor?
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Susan Mayer. I'm a financial consultant for the city, and I'm here to present a 9-month budget report.
I want to, if the council, I'm going to go see it from down there because I can't look up like that. So the council wants to go down there.
The message tonight is a 9-month report card on the city's finances for the current 16-17 fiscal year. Mid-year budget reports are essential for all cities, but they're particularly important for this city, the city of Calexico, because this is a city that does not have the luxury of a reserve or a cushion to buffer any normal budget fluctuations that occur. And so tonight we are presenting for you 9 months of results. I'm pleased to tell you that this report includes all funds of the city and includes both revenues and expenditures. And so, Mr. Lopez, to respond to your question about the airport, the published agenda report includes all funds of the city, including the airport's operating fund. And the only reason I mention that is because you asked this question. And within the body of the report, you will be able to see that, yes, in fact, the airport's revenues are exceeding its budget and exceeding the year-to-date expenditures. I just bring that out as an example so that the purpose of a mid-year report is to inform the city council, the city manager, and the public on the status of all the funds of the city. We particularly dwell on the general fund because this is the fund that is in financial distress and has been in a situation the last 2 fiscal years where the revenues have fallen far short of the expenditures. And so it's very important that we monitor and make adjustments each year to keep within the spending plan. Our objectives tonight are to report the year-to-date results for the 16-17 fiscal year, to discuss the general fund balance projection, and mainly to highlight an emerging budget gap. We've done great work to make progress in rebalancing the general fund budget, but we have some new trends that need to be addressed before the end of the year. We'll discuss that in the process to do so. At the end of the report, I'll also very briefly mention the status of the audit and the progress we have made on that. There's no action requested of City Council tonight. Data is presented for your information and consideration. Staff plans to come back on May 10th with solutions to the budget gap that is emerging. Let's start with the general fund revenues. The current general fund revenue budget, and I want to highlight that this is the general fund excluding Measure H. This is just the general fund. The current budget is $14.8 million. We have a series of adjustments in our projection that are going to actually raise the revenue projection for the current fiscal year to $15.2 million. The adjustments include a one-time item. The successor agency, the former redevelopment agency, was able to sell a parcel of land. And the city, as one of the taxing agency in the county, shares in those proceeds. And so we have a one-time benefit of $150,000 from that property sale. The sales tax trend has been updated by your sales tax consultant, HDL, and they have slightly lowered the projection for the current fiscal year and also lowered the projection for 17-18 as well. Frankly, I thought this was a little bit light on the adjustment, but their staff will be visiting with your staff in another week to provide their analysis that digs into each of the retail segments within the city and to provide their rationale for that projection. The next 3 items on the list are what I would call budget projections, corrections to the budget projection. The franchise fees, the TOT, the investment, and the VLF fees all were overstated in the budget. They are consistent. There are not problems with these revenues. They are consistent with prior actuals. At the time that the budget was prepared, there were some coding errors and some other issues that caused the budget to simply be too high. And so at this time, we're showing that these are not achievable, and we need to bring them back in line. But again, the TOT, the franchise, the actual results are very much in line with the prior years. Lastly, there's a very good news on the Heffernan grant. The local health care district has contributed $560,000 to support the fire department activities here in Calexico through the rest of the year. So for these reasons, we are able to project a total revenue now of $15.2 million. I want to draw your attention to the last number on the page, which is probably the most important number of everything we discussed tonight, and that is the 17-18 revenue projection, $14.4 million. This is our best guess, and we will continue to refine this projection before we bring you the 17-18 proposed budget. But that is the scope of revenues that you will have to plan your city services for the next year. And as the City Council embarks on its strategic plan and looks at its services, the level of services, the structure of those services, That is the number to look at. That is the number without the one-time items that are helping to shore up the current 16-17 year. As we look to right-size the general fund, that is the scope of services that we can afford with your current revenue structure. So let's move on to general fund expenditures. The expenditure budget is currently $14.8 million. Unfortunately, we have identified areas of risk that increase that projection to over $16 million. This is a significant increase. $1 million of this is related to salary and benefits, and the first one is not new news. There was an assumption in the January mid-year report that there would be some fire contract savings. These have not been negotiated, and the Heffernan District has stepped in to fill that gap. So we have additional revenues, but we also have additional expenses. We also have another $500,000 of salary overruns. These are substantially unbudgeted items in the fire department related to the leave backfill. When firefighters are away from work for medical leave or for workers' comp or for other types of leave, those shifts must be backfilled, and these are happening at a rate greater than had been in prior years and greater than the budget. In addition, we have some employees who have left city employment, and so we have leave buyouts, and there are some other things as well. But in total, the cost to pay our existing employees for the rest of the year, assuming all current vacancies remain vacant, will be an additional $500,000. So for these two reasons, the salary and benefit projection is increasing by a significant $1 million. There are two grants in the police department that are falling short on revenues, in the asset forfeiture and in the Stone Garden. And in both cases, the budget had relied on those revenues to support services. And so because those grants are short, the general fund must backfill for them and make up that difference. Collectively, they're about $500,000. We have some administrative expenses that were unanticipated in the budget. The largest is bank fees. You're probably aware that a year ago, the city had to go through a change in the banking arrangements. The bank that the city had used for a long time ceased doing operations in the city, and there was a change. It took a while to understand the cost structure, and at this point, we now have bank fees of about $80,000 a year that were unbudgeted. In addition, there are some other operating costs that were omitted in the budget, and one of those items is the audit. Because the audits are being caught up, we have to pay for more than one audit this year. So the good news is that the audits are catching up. The bad news is that the budget was too low because we have to pay for 1.5 audits in the current year. There were some other operating contracts as well that have been omitted. The Measure H revenues are also short, and so we will be short on the Measure H reimbursements. The good news on this piece of page is the administrative reimbursement from the housing successor. There are funds available in that program to offset the administration of the housing department. The administration of the housing department had been moved to the general fund in the current year because some of the federal and state grants were not available to cover those admin costs. So now we have a different source to backfill, and as a result, we have a $200,000 good news. The bottom line here is that expenditures for 16-17 are $16 million. And I'll compare that to the prior slide where our revenue estimates for next year are in the $14 million range. So we have a gap here.
Before you move on, quick question. May I? Yes. It's trivial to a certain extent. It's only 2% of the overall expenditure of 16 million, but the 80,000 bank excess that was not budgeted for, could you briefly explain what caused that?
Yes. In the process of changing banks, the new bills that were coming from the city's new bank, which happens to be Wells Fargo, the expenses, the bank fees were being netted against the investment income, and so they
Correct.
weren't being recorded. So now we are recording the revenues gross, the expenditures gross. Unfortunately, the investment income is allocated to all funds of the city. The funds that have positive cash balances are allocated the investment income. The general fund is not earning investment income at this time because its cash balance is in fact negative. And so the general fund is absorbing the fees, the investment income is going to the other funds. Now the fees, as well as all other administrative costs of the city, fall into the cost pool and are partially allocated to other funds through the cost allocation plan. So the general fund doesn't retain all of those costs, but the checks are initially paid from the general fund.
Thank you.
When we look at the updated projection of 16 million and compare that with our results as of March, this gives us an indication of the likelihood we are to achieve that projection. And this slide shows that our salary and benefits are slightly under the 25% that you would expect from a 9-month report. And that's because, remember that a number of contract reductions were implemented later in the year are being recaptured in a short period of time. So we believe that the salary and benefit projection is on target. Look at the other line, though. There is clearly capacity within the other operating lines of the budget to absorb part of this budget shortfall. Only 38% of the budget for non-salary and benefit line items, and this includes materials, supplies, professional services, contracts. There are funds remaining on these budget lines that we believe can help buy down the budget shortfall. We are still working through the process to identify and confirm which of these lines have costs that can be reduced, deferred, or canceled in order to work within the expenditure budget for the year. So again, the purpose of this slide is to show the capacity or the likelihood that the city can live within its projection for the year. Salary and benefits look to be on track. There's clearly room in the other operating lines, and we need to go through and scrape out those savings to be sure that the city council is able to adopt an amended budget that is still in balance. This is the recap. We expect revenues for the current fiscal year to be 15 million. We expect expenditures to be 16 million. So we still have work to do to close a $1 million budget gap between now and the end of June in the next 2.5 months. We expect to be back in front of you on May 10th with a list of specific recommendations to resort to the budget to achieve these savings. Because there are no reserves, the City Council and the City Management and the departments must all take actions to shut down expenditures now so that we don't overspend the available revenues that we have in the current fiscal year. I repeat a slide that I have shown before that discussed the essential budgetary controls. And the reason I keep saying this is that the city is working itself out of a period of several fiscal years where there was a financial disaster here. There were not systems or processes in place to forecast where you were. We've made great progress in terms of adopting budgets, and the staff is doing an exceptional job of staying current in recording transactions, reconciling the bank accounts, and providing this analysis to you. The two items in green are what we're doing tonight. We're continuing, again, essential budgetary controls to help the city stay on track with its budget. We're providing timely analysis and response to deviations, which means budget to actual fluctuations, and we're providing this formal mid-year report to the City Council. So again, the slide is intended as a report card to help all of the city stakeholders ensure that your financial house is coming together. What's next? In the next month, you're going to be receiving information on 3 different fiscal years. And just as a refresher as to what information will be coming when, we expect that the audit to be done and presented to you on May 10th. There are still a few items left to be done with the auditors, but I got to tell you about the audit process this year. Your audit firm showed up with 4 people and expected to be here for 4 weeks. They were gone by the end of the 2nd week. Your financial records were so orderly and so clean, there were so few issues that they sent their staff home after the 2nd week. They did have someone come back for a 3rd week to do some cleanup work, but in terms of the overall efficiency of that audit, it was much smoother than it has been. I think that's a real success for your finance staff. Regarding 16-17, we've identified budget work to do. There's a $1 million gap. We will spend the rest of April working on that and be back to you on May 10th with a formal recommendation to amend the budget to address those issues, which will include reducing, canceling, or deferring costs to be sure that you limit your expenses and control your expenses within available revenues for the year. Finally, we're stepping into 17-18. We hope to have a preliminary general fund projection for you on May 17th. I don't know that it will be balanced on that date, but we're going to give you the best available projection that we have so that the city can strategize how it wants to move forward. And then we will be back with a formal full budget for all the city funds later in May or in June. Any questions from the city council?
So, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add a couple things. We first learned of the structural imbalance a couple weeks ago, and I don't want to paint a really bad picture of this year, because, the benefit of doing these mid-year reviews is that we can fix things in that year period in order for us to avoid June 30th having to have a deficit. We do have a pretty good plan of how we're going to realign expenses to make sure that we align them to revenues. So we will come back to you. I believe we have planned that for May 10th with a budget amendment resolution that would actually align us with what I think it should be a new way of life for Calexico, to how to align expenditures to be right around $14.5 million, for the foreseeable future. So, I don't want to paint a really grim picture of this year, because the benefit of doing a major review is that we can fix it. We can fix it now, and we are working on a plan to do that, and we're going to come back to you. I feel confident May 10th we'll be able to resolve the problem. Thank you.
Mr. City Manager, it's called living within your means.
Yes.
First of all, based on what you said, so kudos would go to Eduardo and his staff for the fact that our outside auditor CPA firm was here for 2 weeks versus 4. I'm hoping that they reduce their bill as well, but beggars can't be choosers. A couple questions specifically, and I'm not sure if this is Mayor or Armando, but Operation Stone Garden, I read the notes and it says that we've only received $8,000 of the budgeted $150,000. Do we expect any amount above that $8,000 between now and fiscal year end?
I would refer that question to the police department. I don't have knowledge of that particular grant.
Armando, do you know anything about it? Or Chief, for that matter?
We might be able to realize a little more, but, one of the things that we need to fix as we address future years is really not to rely on this form of funding as a resource, as a revenue structure, because it is really volatile. I can expect probably a couple more details, right, Chief? Yes, that would yield some revenue, but I wouldn't rely on it for future years.
So it's more of a plus than an actual consistent year-over-year
Right.
revenue source.
Right.
My other comment is we seem to be relying heavily on Measure H funds. They seem to be contributing significantly to the general fund, and Measure H funds were destined for other avenues. So I think as a council, it behooves us that we start to think strategically, that we start carving out Measure H for what it was destined to be. And we have a brief conversation on that. And it's something that concerns me because, again, the city is relying heavily to balance its budget from a general fund standpoint, yet those funds, even though they're a portion of the general fund, were really destined for other items, other needs for the city, and not to supplement the general fund. So I think it behooves us to get together and figure that one out as soon as possible. I have no further comments. Thank you.
Mr. Hodge?
I just have one. The TOT that was up there, was that projected amount?
The city's TOT is actually very consistent with the prior year. The error in the budget for the current year is that the city's policy is that 30% of the TOT funds the IVECA program, the IVECA program, and that amount was not, the general fund should only have had 70%, and it budgeted 100%. 30% goes to a different fund for different programs.
Thank you.
No comment.
No comment.
One more, is it okay?
You want me to go first? Or you want
Go for it.
No, go ahead. Ms. Mayor, like always, it's a pleasure to see you here. I think that that the fact that you're praising our staff really means a lot to, I think, the council and the staff, because with your years of experience, contrary to what some people have said, you do believe in our finance department and that they're doing a great job. Also, the council has really turned around our financial situation in the city, along with our employees, our staff that have taken a lot of concessions to get us here. And still, I think if I could put it in a nutshell, we still have some work to do, I think. I think we got that 80%, and that's that last 20 that'll hopefully, that'll be a little difficult, but I think we'll get there. But again, I wanna stress how important it is that we understand that the major issues that we're having in our city come back to not necessarily the cost side, but the revenue side. We need to become a tax-generating city, and we need to be growing, correct me if I'm wrong, at least at a 7% a year, because my understanding is all the CalPERS, all our insurance, everything continues to go up. And so if our revenues are not growing, then this will continue to happen year after year after year. That's the trend, correct? Everything goes up except our revenues. So again, I just want to stress to the council and to that at this point, we need to focus. Our employees have taken hits and could possibly even take more hits. The council is doing everything it can, but we need to be, as a city, proactive and start bringing in business to the city, because if not, we can continue to cut services, but that's not what we really want to do. We want to add services. And to the public here and the people watching at home, we used to be a city with 280 employees. We're down to less than 150. We need to come back to not letting people go and stop and lowering services, but giving the community more services and hiring people to get back the services that the city needs. And the only way to do that is for us to become a business-friendly city, roll out the red carpet for anyone who wants to do business in the city of Calexico. And that's something the council needs to work hard on. I hope we can do that. So
I'd like to say something, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, your turn's up. I'm joking.
Mr. Mayor, I completely agree with you. This is something that we're not enough, and that is we are not aggressive enough as far as bringing in revenue. Maybe this question is not appropriate for you. Please excuse my naivete, but he said that there has to be some ways to bring in revenue. Do you have suggestions?
My specialty is in accounting. I'll refer this to your economic development
Economic
experts.
development, yeah.
Maybe I can address that question. I think it's, we see that very near to us now. One of our major concerns and what we've been working over the last 9 months is to understand our financial predicament. I think we got a good handle on it now. And we know as a fact that our revenue streams are going to be around $14.5 million for a while. So understanding that, now we gotta adjust our expenditures to be that, so we're not in a deficit anymore. But a big portion of it, something we need to do is to develop that goal-setting strategic plan, so you and the community can tell us what we need to be working on to be able to grow our revenue. Okay, so that's going to be something we're going to do over the next year, 2 years, to try to do things to grow our revenue stream, whether it is through economic development and things like that. And I don't want to steal the mayor's thunder for tomorrow, but we are starting to see a lot of good things happening for Calexico. And we'll unveil that. But there's a lot of investment that's being done in Calexico that's going to help us get to the next level. So we are going to be thinking about that, and I hope that we do that when we do our strategic plan, our goal setting, so that we can start right-sizing the budget and develop our workforce to be able to tackle on the next thing, which will be economic development and growth. For our
Armando.
general fund.
Do we mainly wait and hope that developers will come to us? Or do we, through appropriate avenues, actively seek developers and try to sell them, our city to them?
If, I guess I can answer that. We are members
You
of
said
IED.
Armando, so you can answer that.
We are members of IVEDC and things like that do market our city.
Well,
But-
that
but-
I
but-
know.
But I will say, and I'm sure the city manager will say that that's something that we do need to work on as far as our marketing. But yeah, just to piggyback off what you said, that is something that we need to really get a hold of as a council and start being proactive.
Proactive.
With our staff to go ahead and look at these developments, because again, it's, we need to be growing, because if we're stagnant, our income is stagnant, and our bills are getting higher every year, it catches up to us year after year, and that is what's really happening here. I think the community has already put their part, because we do have the highest taxes of any city in the county. So we came to the community and asked for Measure H to help us. They got that passed. They're already putting their part. Employees are putting their part as far as taking cuts. Now it's time for the city council to really roll out that red carpet. I truly believe and tell everybody that Calexico is open for business.
And Mr.
And
Mayor,
that's what we need to do.
how important is a grant writer or one that looks for grants for its city?
Well, it's very important, but it doesn't cover everything. And by the way, we do have engaged the services of a huge company, and I say huge because they do deliver. The company's name is California Consulting.
We have a company?
Yes, and they're helping us seek grants.
Good.
We're hoping that over the next 6 months, we can see some really good results out
Good.
of that. And just to answer the other question you have is that we all know that the standard thing to do for a city is to try to also grow revenue. And the only way to grow revenue is to be very active with economic development. This is our intent. The next step of our strategy is how do we develop a really good economic development approach? But you need to align resources. We need to develop a workforce to be able to help us get there. We can't just do a good economic development program with the kind of resources that we have. We need to build up. And I think that, I have a very good understanding of what that means, and my intention is to get there over the next year to be able to get us there in a position to be bringing in more development to our city.
Good.
Can I just, I'm almost done. Mrs. Mayor, when and Mr. Escobar, I believe, said the correct verbiage for that is in living within our means. Ever since I've been involved in the city of Calexico, I've noticed that we do use, for example, asset forfeiture and all these extra grants that come in, and we almost depend on them. And I do want to also stress to everybody that's we have to live within our means with our general fund. The Measure H and all these things. For example, asset forfeiture, I know we were a part of LA Impact, which helped with that. We're no longer a part of that. Stone Garden kind of is something that could be gone next year. So we need to live within our means with that 14.5 million. That's the size of a city we are. That's our revenue. But usually we're in the 17, $18 million area, plus the 2 million for Measure H, so around 20. So we've definitely done a lot in the last year, I think, thanks to you and to the staff. We're really, like I said, we're 80, 90% there. It's that small part that's left. But again, just to finish off my comment, I want to thank you, staff. I can't say enough, city manager, and the council for getting this done. So.
Quick comment on the enterprise funds. I know we're going to discuss this at length in our May and June strategic session or offsite. And I know we're doing major road building as we discussed in the last meeting. There's about a dozen or so streets that we'll be repaving or rehabilitating, if not more. Just wondering, any other projects that are currently in the works other than the street paving, repaving, reconditioning that were discussed at the last meeting, from an enterprise fund standpoint?
We are actually, and that's going to be part of the mayor's delivery tomorrow, so I don't want to spoil it for him. But we're also planning, and I believe, Nick, we're planning to have a capital improvement program presentation to you May 10th. We're going to bring back May 10th. And we'll unveil all the future projects that we have for you.
Thank you.
Can't we start saving for reserves now?
Not yet.
We don't have,
I mean, how does that work?
we don't have money.
Well, I think first we gotta
I
be
mean-
balanced and
It's you balance, and then what's left over goes to reserve, or
I,
during the year,
This is actually something that you, as a council, can, in your goal setting, you can begin to think about how do we start that piggy bank, so to speak.
yeah.
thank you.
Dollars I
Thank
can
you.
contribute.
Moving on. Item 8, appointment.
Are you going to take,
No, we take them before. Appointment and mayor and council members for the following commission, board, and committees: Calexico Police Advisory Board and Business Improvement District. Who's up for appointments? Gabby? Escobar? Okay.
I believe I have an appointment for police commission that is open. No, that should be the only one. I appointed somebody for bid last week, or a few weeks ago. I'm working diligently on that. Unfortunately, I have no one to nominate at this time.
I believe I have a police commissioner appointment, or no? I have, okay. I just want to make sure.
What's his name, bowed out? Mr. Wong? For Measure H. I spoke, excuse me?
I believe he needs to resign first, and then you can appoint?
I don't think he even came forward.
Oh, he never did? Okay.
So, should I appoint now? She seemed very interested, or maybe I should find,
Advertise.
I mean, I do have,
We try to advertise 10 days, and then we can do it at the next meeting.
okay. But I do have somebody in mind.
Okay. Future agenda items, anybody want to go first?
What the hell are we going to do about our commissions? When are they going to be working at full throttle, or what are the obstacles? I'm completely lost as to, one, we just don't.
I would,
Everybody.
I think, if I may, I've been, I attended the last Finance and Economic Development Commission meeting. I think it was kind of frustrating for me because, as far as I'm concerned, all we would have to do is possibly just merge both bylaws and start moving forward. But again, kind of politics gets in the way, and I think now we're doing the right thing as a city. I think the commissions just kind of need to speed up the process as far as their bylaws, bless you, and their, picking their chairman and, you know, but, I think we're almost there. I don't think, what do you,
Well, the first order of business, I think we have to populate the commissions, right? So you got to make your
So
selections, and then,
that's a negligence.
Right,
We
and
haven't
then-
populated all of them.
yeah, and then.
but they all
and then-
have a quorum. I mean, they have enough to start meeting, I guess.
They do.
Right, and then, you know, they got to go through their housekeeping items, which will be to do
Bylaws.
their chairman, the
What's
vice
stopping
chair,
them from having their meetings?
well, it's always recommended that you have a full commission before they start assigning who the chair and the vice chair is going to be. Otherwise, you're always going to have one absent or two that have been appointed, and then three of them.
Correct.
So you need to really have a full populated commission before you start doing your housekeeping items, your bylaws, and your I call them housekeeping
All right,
items.
so if we populate them completely, then they can start having their meetings?
Sure.
Because at this point in time, I was just told that 3 were active. Very, very important that we get them going.
Do you have a future agenda item? Mr. Pacheco?
The updates on the freeways, the highways, is that too early? They're just gonna be here a long time, 98 and Imperial Avenue? If there's anything to report on this.
Yeah, we can give you an update on that May 10th when we do the capital projects.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. A gentleman approached me, and he said, it's been 2 years. The lights have been out at Meadows and Carrillo, and just the other, not so long ago, a gentleman was hit by a car in the dark. And if we can check that and see if we can correct it as soon as possible.
Mr. Mayor, over the next 2 months, we're going to be having a lot of budget and a lot of visioning and goal-setting meetings. So I would hope that you don't have any items for us, because we're planning almost 2 months of agendas for you, dealing with the budget, the financials, and then dealing with the strategy and goal-setting sessions, so.
You just threw me off there. I had a list of like 5 things. Well, I'll say it, and whatever you feel is, you guys have the opportunity to do it, but again, this is something that I really believe that we have to move forward with, and again, parking meters downtown, for economic development, for franchises that want to come in, just to give, some information. There was a company wanted to come in downtown, and because there's parking meters, certain franchises don't want to come in. I'm speaking, nationwide franchises. And again, I'm not saying that we don't need the 2-hour parking for the people coming back and forth. Yes, we do. We do need that enforced, but the parking meters, I believe, need to go. I believe they hinder growth, and I hopefully that we can get that on the agenda as soon as possible, so we can see hopefully that these businesses start coming into downtown. It's going to be our the new borders coming in 2018 and 2020 for the pedestrian. But I believe that if we help with that, the business will come, and so we can. Again, just a note that I still want to see that hopefully as soon as we can. And with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn?
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Is it still daily?